Hey there, welcome. Have you ever found yourself pushing, really pushing, for something you desperately wanted? Maybe it was a relationship you were trying to mend or ignite, a career goal that felt like it was always just out of reach, or even an internal state like a desperate yearning for peace amidst chaos. You pour all your energy into it, you strategize, you try harder, and yet, the more you force it, the further it seems to slip through your fingers. It's like trying to catch smoke, isn't it? That feeling of your efforts creating more resistance, not less. This isn't just a string of bad luck. It's a profound human experience, a common trap we all stumble into. We're talking about that deep, almost instinctual urge to control the narrative of our lives, to bend reality to our will. But what if I told you that the very act of forcing that white-knuckled grip on outcomes is often the primary obstacle standing between you and what you truly seek? It sounds paradoxical, I know. We're taught that effort equals results, but there's a subtle distinction between dedicated action and desperate force. This resistance we feel when we're pushing too hard. It arises because that pressure, that intensity born of fear or impatience, breeds an incredible amount of tension and friction. It's like trying to jam a key into the wrong lock. The more force you apply, the more stuck it becomes. This tension blocks the natural flow of energy, not just in the world around us, but within us too. Think about water for a moment. A river doesn't carve a canyon through sheer brute force in a single explosive moment. It does so through patient persistence, through constant, gentle movement, yielding to obstacles, finding the path of least resistance, yet relentlessly moving forward. Water shapes the hardest rock, not by trying to be rock, but by being utterly, unapologetically itself. Fluid, adaptable, and continuous. In stark contrast, when we try to force life's current, we become rigid, we fight the natural contours of our path, and we exhaust ourselves in the process. Openness, a sense of ease, even a playful curiosity. These are the qualities that allow life to move swiftly and smoothly through us and for us. When you soften your grip, you're not giving up. You're giving way to a more powerful force. Our culture often lionizes the hustle, the grind. We're conditioned from a young age to believe that success, love, and happiness are things to be aggressively pursued, wrestled into submission, and controlled down to the smallest detail. Magazine covers scream about 10 steps to force your way to the top, or how to make anyone fall in love with you. It's a narrative of conquest. And while dedication and hard work are undeniably important, no one really teaches us the art of allowing, the profound strength in trusting the process, or the simple revolutionary power of just breathing. We become masters of exertion, but novices in receptivity. We learn how to chase, but not how to attract. This imbalance creates a profound disconnect, leaving us wondering why, despite all our efforts, we still feel like we're swimming upstream. Consider the things you've chased out of a deep-seated fear, fear of loneliness, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. How many of those pursuits, even if momentarily attained, brought lasting fulfillment? Often what we grasp at from a place of fear has a slippery, ephemeral quality. It's like clutching sand. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it escapes. This is because fear constricts. It narrows our vision, it tenses our muscles, it makes our energy jagged and repellent. As the great philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer might observe, this relentless chasing, driven by an insatiable will, often leads not to satisfaction, but to a perpetual cycle of desire and frustration. The wanting itself becomes a source of suffering. Conversely, think about the moments or relationships in your life that arrived with a sense of ease, a natural unfolding, perhaps even a surprise. These are the experiences that tend to take root, to feel authentic and enduring, because they weren't born from a deficit, but from a place of alignment. When we consciously choose to release our desperate grip on rigid timelines, on specific non-negotiable outcomes, on how other people should behave or feel, we create something incredibly valuable. Spaciousness. Imagine your mind like a cluttered room. When it's crammed full of anxieties, obsessive plans, and mental rehearsals of every possible negative outcome, there's no room for anything new to enter. No room for fresh ideas to land, no space for peace to settle. No quietude for genuine connection to surface and be heard above the noise. It's in this mental and emotional spaciousness that intuition whispers, that serendipity finds an opening. There's a peculiar truth here. Sometimes the fastest way to stall your progress is by trying to over-accelerate. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. If you're tense, overthinking every wobble and desperately trying to force balance, you're far more likely to fall. But when you relax, look ahead, and allow your body to make an almost infinite number of micro-adjustments, you find a natural equilibrium. You flow. Stepping back, metaphorically speaking, from the handlebars of life, not in defeat but in wisdom, often invites that very flow we've been fighting so hard to achieve. It's about easing off the throttle of sheer will and allowing the engine of life to find its own rhythm. This concept of letting go is often misunderstood. It's not about passivity or resignation. It's not about giving up on your dreams or becoming a doormat. Far from it. True letting go is a form of smart action, an empowered choice rooted in profound clarity rather than reactive panic. It's about discerning when to act and when to allow, when to speak and when to listen, when to push and when to pause. It's the wisdom to know that sometimes the most powerful move is no move at all, but rather a shift in internal posture from resistance to receptivity. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, those parts of ourselves we often deny or repress. Our obsession with control can be such a shadow, a frantic attempt to manage the unpredictable nature of existence. By acknowledging this tendency, by bringing it into the light, we can begin to integrate it, transforming that desperate need to control into a more balanced and trusting engagement with life. When we stop trying to micromanage life as if it were a machine with predictable inputs and outputs, something remarkable begins to happen. Our inner calm, cultivated through this practice of letting go, starts to reflect outwardly. It's almost as if the universe responds to this internal shift. Opportunities that seemed invisible before suddenly appear. Relationships that were strained by our attempts to control or change the other person begin to deepen, as genuine acceptance replaces expectation. We start to move more in sync with reality rather than constantly battling it. Think of those moments in life that feel almost magical. The unexpected encounter that changes your trajectory. The effortless opportunity that lands in your lap, the sudden insight that resolves a long-standing problem. These moments rarely, if ever, happen when we're obsessively overthinking every step, lost in the labyrinth of our anxious minds. They happen when we're present, open, and available to the unfolding moment. Jung might have called these moments of synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that seem to align inner states with outer events, often emerging when we relax our ego's tight grip. At the heart of this compulsion to control, to force, to micromanage, lies fear. It's a primal fear, really. We fear that if we loosen our iron grip, even for a moment, everything will collapse. We fear uncertainty, we fear vulnerability, we fear not getting what we believe we need to be happy or safe. We fear, as Jean-Paul Sartre might articulate, the dizzying freedom of being entirely responsible for creating meaning in a meaningless universe, and so we grasp for external structures and predictable outcomes. Yet, ironically, it is this very iron grip, born of fear, that constricts life, making it harder, more brittle and less joyful. Forcing a relationship to work when it's clearly run its course, or pushing an idea before its time, doesn't just lead to external failure. It exhausts us, erodes our confidence, and often traps us in a painful loop of, why isn't this working? What am I doing wrong? We internalize the resistance, believing we are fundamentally flawed, rather than recognizing that our method is flawed. Conversely, what happens when, instead of redoubling our efforts in the face of such resistance, we consciously choose to pause, to step out of the rapids, find a still place on the riverbank, and simply breathe? In that stillness, something shifts. The muddy waters of our anxiety begin to clear. When we stop fighting the current, when we stop mentally wrestling with the problem, a fresh clarity often emerges. The next right move, the intuitive nudge, the creative solution, it surfaces naturally when we're not desperately thrashing about. It's not about inaction, it's about inspired action that arises from a place of calm, not chaos. This is akin to what Friedrich Nietzsche termed Amor Fati, a love of one's fate, an acceptance and even affirmation of all that has been and all that is. It's not a passive resignation, but an active embrace of reality, allowing us to move with it rather than against it. When we fight the river of life, we're essentially saying reality should be different. When we embrace stillness, we open ourselves to what reality is actually offering. So much of true growth, the most profound and lasting transformations, happens invisibly beneath the surface. Think of a seed. You plant it, you water it, but you don't dig it up every day to check its progress. You trust the process. Roots deepen underground, silently, steadily. Healing, whether physical or emotional, often blooms in silence, in the quiet spaces where the soul can do its work undisturbed. Forcing this process, constantly prodding and pushing for visible results, only interrupts the delicate, sacred work that's underway. The wisdom then lies not in doing more, but in doing less with more intention. It's about trusting the timing of your life, understanding that there are seasons for sowing and seasons for reaping, seasons for action and seasons for quiet integration. It's about learning to embrace uncertainty, not as a threat, but as a realm of infinite possibility. When we make space, truly make space by releasing our preconceived notions and desperate attachments, what truly belongs to us, what is genuinely aligned with our deepest being, can find its way in. Those individuals you might admire for their seeming luck, for the way life appears to flow effortlessly for them. They haven't just stumbled into good fortune. More often than not, they have, consciously or unconsciously, mastered this art of allowing. They've learned that periods of nothing happening on the surface are not necessarily signs of stagnation or failure. Instead, they often signal that profound, unseen changes are in progress. The caterpillar in its chrysalis appears dormant, yet it's undergoing one of nature's most radical transformations. They understand that sometimes the universe is rearranging the pieces behind the scenes, preparing the way for something far better than what they could have engineered through force alone. This is a deep trust, not in a specific outcome, but in the inherent wisdom of the life process itself. Ultimately, this shift from a life of force to a life of flow is about learning to be profoundly okay, even without the specific thing you think you absolutely need right now. It's a radical act of self-trust. It involves developing the discernment to distinguish between chasing something out of a genuine, soul-aligned belief and inspiration versus chasing something out of fear, lack, or societal pressure. When trust, not desperation, becomes your primary driving force, you carry so much less emotional baggage. The frantic energy dissipates, replaced by a calm, centered confidence. This isn't an arrogant confidence, but a quiet knowing that you are whole and resourceful, regardless of external circumstances. And this state of being is incredibly attractive, not just to people, but to opportunities. Doors that you were once banging on relentlessly begin to open organically, almost as if they were waiting for you to stop pushing. People gravitate towards this authentic ease, this non-needy presence. As Viktor Frankl might suggest, meaning is often found not in the pursuit of happiness itself, but in the way we orient ourselves to life, our commitments, and our capacity to transcend difficult circumstances. When we surrender our resistance, we find a deeper meaning in the flow. The less we try to force, the faster and more gracefully life seems to move for us. Not because we've surrendered our will in the sense of giving up, but because we've surrendered our resistance to the greater intelligence of life. We've aligned our personal will with a larger, more harmonious current. It's about co-creating with life rather than dictating to it. It's the difference between sailing with the wind and rowing against a storm. Both involve effort, but one is infinitely more graceful and effective. So, here's an invitation, a gentle experiment for you to try. The next time you feel that internal pressure building, that familiar urge to push harder, to control, to force an outcome, I want you to just pause. Before you react, before you escalate your efforts, take a conscious breath. Step back, even if just for a few moments. Remind yourself of this principle. Pressure creates resistance, while peace, that inner spaciousness, creates momentum. In that quiet open space you create by stepping back, what's truly meant for you, what aligns with your deepest path, has a chance to arrive, often in its own perfect time and in its own unexpected way. It's about trusting that you don't have to carry the weight of the world or your desires all by yourself. If this message, this exploration of moving from force to flow resonates with you, if it sparks something within you, I'd be so grateful if you'd consider subscribing to the channel and perhaps sharing your own experiences in the comments below. How have you seen this principle play out in your own life? Together, as a community, we can continue to learn how to cultivate presence, how to release the grip of fear, and how to let life, in all its wisdom and beauty, flow through us once again. Thank you for sharing this space with me today.